Nature tourism is travel conducted specifically in order to enjoy natural attractions, and usually involves leisurely or intense activities that facilitate close proximity to and involvement with nature. Bicycling, trekking, and scuba diving are a few of the more popular activities involved in nature tourism. This topic is especially relevant to this class because we are a cohort of students engaging in this activity in a land foreign to most of us, so it is important to understand the arguments behind the benefits of nature tourism, the dangers associated with it, and the cultural significance of the lands we are visiting. Of course, nature does not exist in isolation to humanity and is not a static phenomenon. Therefore, it is important to understand its connection to people both of the past and present, especially in the context of monetization of sites that may be sacred to them. Nature tourism is gaining reputation as a viable means of rejuvenating rural economies in Australia. According to Ecotourism Australia, in 2016 the number of international tourists had increased 11% from the year before, and 68% of these tourists engaged in nature-based activities. Nature tourism itself is also experiencing steady growth at 4% per year, so it is no surprise that it is being looked towards as a means of creating jobs in areas with slowed economies. International tourists, especially from China, also showed great interest in nature tourism versus any other category in surveys. An inflow of tourists into such areas means a strong demand for restaurants, accommodations, guides, and souvenirs is created. This leads to an increase in jobs and leads to greater knowledge and appreciation of the natural beauty of Australia. Nonetheless, nature tourism is not free of its own issues. In Southeast Asia especially, there are concerns that rapid urbanization in response to mass tourism is not sustainable and will lead to the depletion of natural resources and cultural commodification. In Bali, one of the world's most famous tourism spots, 700 hectares of land are converted to hotels or roads annually in order to manage the booming tourism industry. These hotels themselves are large consumers of fresh water, with each room in a high-end hotel consuming 300 liters per day, and producing amounts of trash that far exceed the local capabilities of waste management. To make matters worse, some Balinese individuals feel that the culture is used as a commodity for business purposes. There are concerns that the diverse culture of Bali is being unified and packaged into one experience for tourists. There are some practices, like greeting tourists with a garland of flowers, for example, that are not of Balinese origin, but are still performed as a part of this package. Cultural food, clothing, and rites or traditions are also commercialized in this manner. In order to combat this, alternative forms of tourism such as ecotourism and community-based tourism have been born. Ecotourism refers to tourism focused on nature, but conducted in a sustainable manner that fosters awareness of the environment and intercultural understanding. Organizations such as Ecotourism Australia have set up education initiatives to promote best practices that reduce the effects of mass tourism on natural environments. In turn, such organizations head trips themselves, where tourists stay with local communities and engage in environmental initiatives.
Booty National Park recently, where you can walk down to the beach and camp by the beach. It was really nice area, and it's close to Sydney. So,
one current issue with ecotourism in Australia is the feeding of eastern grey kangaroos on a lawn outside Morisset Psychiatric Hospital. Our group went to Morisset carrying bags of carrots in our backpacks, prepared to feed the kangaroos. After the 2-hour train ride from Sydney, we boarded a kangaroo shuttle that was conveniently located outside the station. On the way to the park, we were informed that many of the kangaroos had been put down because of health issues caused by tourists feeding them. After getting off the shuttle, almost half of the people there were feeding the kangaroos, including carrots, popcorn, and other junk food. This has created problems for residents at the psychiatric hospital while also endangering the visiting tourists. The kangaroos have large, sharp claws, and tourists at this park have been attacked and even hospitalized. Once off the shuttle, there was only one sign on a tree far from the lawn to indicate that feeding the kangaroos is bad for them and tourist safety. To make this attraction less threatening to the kangaroos and to tourists, we believe there should be multilingual signs on the lawn itself informing the public of the consequences that can result from feeding the kangaroos. Feeding should be prohibited by law, and a park ranger should be stationed at the lawn to educate people about the issues of feeding the kangaroos.
In the big parks, I think it's pretty well managed, so not really. And in most of the other parks, there's just not enough. I don't think there are enough people visiting to damage anything, really.
Okay.
As long as people use the parks in the right way, which I think they do.
Destination NSW, established in 2011, is the leading government agency involved in promoting the growth of tourism in New South Wales. In supporting such a lucrative industry, Destination NSW has designed an Aboriginal Tourism Action Plan to maximize the economic success of Aboriginal tourism experiences and businesses in New South Wales, while also fostering a greater appreciation for Aboriginal culture and providing Aboriginal populations with economic and social benefits. Such benefits include financially supporting Aboriginal operated businesses and businesses in which the Aboriginal peoples are highly involved in. Although government agencies may portray such nature tourism as being mutually beneficial for those running Aboriginal-based tourism business and the Aboriginals themselves, the reality of the situation is far more complicated. Though it is true that the revenue generated from the tourism industry is often used to promote the conservation of Aboriginal territories and the overall well-being of the Aboriginals, nature tourism has also negatively impacted these Indigenous communities. A particular Aboriginal group that has been negatively impacted by the growing industry of nature tourism is the Anangu people of Uluru Kata Tjuta. Granted, the revenue generated from tourism at the Uluru Kata Tjuta National Park goes towards the preservation of Uluru, the 1,142-foot sandstone formation. Uluru holds large cultural value for the Anangu people as it houses spiritual and educational rock art dating back thousands of years, and that according to Chukurpa, the cultural foundation of the Anangu, Uluru was formed by sacred ancestral beings. However, the promotion of tourism in Uluru since the 1950s has allowed for the erosion of the monolith via the climbers. To make matters worse, tourists disrespect the spiritual significance of Uluru by climbing it against the wishes of the Anangu people who do not climb it themselves. Furthermore, the tolls that nature tourism has taken on Uluru also includes the contribution to global climate change and the alteration and destruction of its habitats and their assortments of flora and fauna.
There should be locations like Uluru that are off limits for tourism. There should be places that are just left alone and just let be. Uluru is a great example because the Indigenous people see Uluru as being sacred and they don't want anyone trying to conquer it.
Yeah, I think all nature should be able to be accessed by anyone. It's a good question. Well, I think that if people see these natural places and they realise how beautiful the natural places are, then they're more likely to want to protect them. So, in terms of local, if Australians are visiting the parks, then they're more likely to petition the government. Australia a good reputation, I think, for being a nice natural country.
The positives of international tourism in Australia is it brings tons of new people into the country and they get to experience and see new things that they can't see in their own home country. And local tourism, you get to experience and see your country in a whole new way. And I think people value their country more when they've been able to see all the different terrains and different environments inside their own country.